located?
I'm located in London.
Okay.
Uh, yeah. So I'm a university student in London currently. Yeah.
All right. I've got some friends in and around London.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick is in London. Matt's in London. Danny's in Bristol. So
Mm-hmm.
we got some people that I know. I'll introduce you to them soon enough. So, yes, we had started off talking about that a major teaching of the Buddha has to do with the understanding that fire must have a fuel to burn, that no fire burns without a fuel.
Mm-hmm.
If we can understand that that's true not just in the physics of making fires, but in all of physics, and then if we can see that if it's true in all of physics, then it is also true in all of reality,
Mm-hmm.
including mental reality. That this concept that fire burns only with the fuel, and when it's got good fuel, it has, I guess, a good fire. So the quality of the fire depends upon the quality of the fuel.
Mm-hmm.
So you can have a refuge fire, but a refuge fire is different from a fire of a gas stove. But fire is fire. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So um, if we understand that, then we can understand actually that this is what we mean by the cause and effect.
Right. Okay.
Cause and effect is the same thing as fuel and the fire of the fuel.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so if you have um, the fuel in a fire, then you have the fire, and when you remove the fuel, you have no more fire. Have you under? Can you get that?
Yeah,
I
makes
mean,
sense.
that's it
Yeah,
makes sense.
makes perfect
Okay,
sense. Yeah.
all right. It makes intellectual sense on the surface of it, but I'm looking for a deeper understanding than just it makes sense.
I
But
mean,
rather,
yeah, I get exactly what you're saying because I mean, at the very least, I understand what you mean in the physics realm of things. Because obviously, I did do physics, so obviously, energy can't be created, it can't be destroyed. It's only transferred from one place to another. So essentially, what you're saying is that negative thoughts will necessarily create more negative thought.
and other things,
Right.
okay, and that we can describe them, other things. Let us say it this way: if you have one kind of thought,
Hmm.
then you will have a certain kind of body chemistry that goes with it, and there's also a mind chemistry that goes with it. That we're looking at the fact that we are electromechanical robots.
Hmm.
But we're very sophisticated, but we're not nearly as sophisticated as we think we are. So we're all electromechanical, and actually, it's not electromechanical; it's electrochemical.
Yeah. Right.
And so all of these brain chemicals, such as serotonin, dopamine, tryptophan, uh, oxycodone, all of those different brain chemicals are being produced depending upon the state of mind that we're in. And the state of mind that we're in is often associated with thoughts, memories, and or new information that we come across that uh, will cause a reaction. For instance, many people, when they see a snake on the pavement, let us say even they see a snake beside the road when they're in the car passing down the highway, still when they see that snake, they'll have an internal reaction to that snake, a repulsion and fear. But if you're actually right close to that snake, in fact, um, I was at let us say a roadside museum that they had in the United States. And
Uh-huh.
this was out in Mexico, close to uh, that area that is, oh gosh, Area 57, Rosdale. That okay. And in one of the exhibits, they had a snake, and they had a bet that you couldn't hold your hand to that glass that snake was in for 5 minutes, and everybody would take that bet.
Uh-huh.
And when the guy would put his hand to the glass, the guy would go get the snake and
Uh-huh.
grab it by the throat with this a long device that he had and put it right up next to the guy's hand. And almost everybody, I mean, he wins that bet all the time by putting that snake, and there's just a piece of glass there, and he brings that snake right up, and everybody will take their hand away.
It's instinctual, right?
Well, yes, that's the whole point that I'm getting at.
Okay.
That this is instinctual, but it's possible for you to keep your hand there if you have strong determination that you can override that uh, instinctual fear.
Uh-huh.
It can be done.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So, what I'm getting at with this is that we have these instinctual fears that come up, that we see something, and then, but it's not just the snake. There's something that the human adds to that. And that is an instinctual memory of fear of snakes,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to where eagles don't have that fear of snakes.
Right.
Possibly they don't have that fear because when they see a snake, we're talking about generation after generation from prehistory, that when the eagle's in the sky, he's completely safe of that snake, but humans walking on the ground, it's dangerous for them to be around that snake.
Uh-huh.
So the eagle then, he sees that snake down there, and he circles around until he can find a way to get in, and he sees that snake as dinner.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so that eagle has a completely different reaction to that snake than the human does.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Okay, this is what we're calling instinct.
Mm-hmm.
And that instinct is built into our DNA.
Mm-hmm.
And that instinct is actually, you could say, is a self-preservation instinct.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're looking at is that many of the self-preservation instinctual behaviors that we have all day long are basically false positives.
Yeah, right.
Okay, just like that was a false positive that snake, because of that piece of glass, when that guy broke that snake up there with his device, the reality was that snake cannot bite me.
Mm.
Okay, but we react to it completely differently. We
Uh,
react to it as if it's really dangerous,
uh-huh.
where in fact the reality is there is no danger.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we get started with that when we are kids. We start behaving and reacting to adults and parents around. When the teacher scolds, we think it's dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
So then for the rest of their life, the young man, anytime a female scolds him, he feels terrified. Right?
Mm.
This is how it happens, is that we pick up habits based upon instincts.
Conditioning, right.
We condition our instincts,
Mm-hmm.
but the instincts, the underlying instincts are there.
Yeah.
Now that conditioning that we're talking about, in Pali it's called Sila Bhatta Paramasa. Have you ever heard that word before?
First time.
Sila Bhatta Paramasa actually is known as the second fetter. It's one of the very early fetters. It's along with personality view. The idea within the teachings of the Buddha is that there is a sequence of events that knowledge precedes deliverance. An example of that is the prisoner who is escaping from prison has to figure out a way to escape.
Mm-hmm.
And after he's figured out and does all of his planning, only then can he escape.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so knowledge precedes deliverance. In fact, knowledge is the conditioning causality for deliverance.
Okay.
Okay, therefore, the beginning part of the path of the Buddha is based in knowledge, not in direct deliverance.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first knowledges that we have to go through is the knowledge of who am I, what's practicing, what is happening here. The second knowledge has to do with, look at all this conditioning stuff that I've been carrying around, because those conditions are not me. That's the Silabhata Paramasa, the conditioning. It's often translated into English out of the sutras as rites, rules, and rituals.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more than that. But it's like those things.
Mm-hmm.
Rules, including laws, including the rules of the house rules. Okay? Rites, rules, rituals, what Mama wants, what some authority wants from us. And we remember those things because we get punished if we break the rule. Self-preservation instinct means that we got to keep all the rules.
Mm-hmm.
And so we wind up spending our whole day going around keeping the rules so that we can maintain a state of safety because we don't feel safe. And
Mm-hmm.
look at our culture, what we've done. Our whole idea is that way back when, 10,000, 100,000 years ago, life was dangerous. Every place was wild. There were no cities or safe places anywhere. And so Neanderthals would sleep together, bunched together in a little herd at night, just like the dogs do,
Mm-hmm.
just like wolves. They go in packs, just like monkeys will sleep together in trees. It's called the nesting instinct. But it's also the same instinct as the herding instinct, which is basically to go along to get along. Imagine that you've got a group of wildebeest, water buffaloes, something, and that the lion comes up and he starts sneaking through the grass, and one of them gets a whiff of what, uh, and he warns all of the others. What they do is they get into a herd, a very tight little herd.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because the herd is safer. Any wildebeest that's not part of the herd is going to be called out, or actually, if he's not part of the herd, he's already been called out, and
Mm-hmm.
therefore he's vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
This is instinctual behavior that we have. It's
Mm-hmm.
really important to recognize that we have this thing and we call it social. We are social animals,
Mm-hmm.
right? We go along to get along.
Mm-hmm.
That going along to get along is that herding behavior, and that is how we live our lives in order to be safe. And so we follow all the rules and we do what we're told to do and we try to fit into society. And guess what? Some of those rules are contradictory, giving us quandary. We don't know what to do. We don't know which rule to follow.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. So, this is why we call this a fetter, is because we have to figure out that no, we've got a different thing to do here. We've got something new to do. We have to stop following all of those 10,000 million rules and come up with something that's simple. And the Buddha has a solution for that. What is that? Dukkha, dukkha, nirodha. If you apply dukkha, dukkha, nirodha in every moment, then you don't need to follow anybody else's rules.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that an example of that is that, oh, well, I'm doing this for your own good. You heard that often.
Mm-hmm.
The worst case of it is the doctors that were associated with the concentration camps in Germany, World War II, were experimenting on patients,
Mm-hmm.
calling it scientific experiments.
Mm-hmm.
It was very little more than just torture.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when you have the idea that, like the parents saying, well, I'm only doing this for your own good, like when they're spanking a child or anything like that. Basically, what that means is you're giving a gift that's unwanted. Giving a gift that's unwanted or taking power over someone else, giving them something, and that's actually in this moment creating suffering.
Mm-hmm.
And your whole idea was that doing this for your own good, which means I want you to be safe in the future, but right now I want you to suffer,
Right.
right? The Buddha's teaching is completely different than that. He says no suffering and no suffering in this moment. So I'm not going to go around doing good for people that don't like what I'm doing good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing things for other people's own good because that's just an indication that they don't like what I'm doing. That if I'm going to give somebody a gift, I should give them a gift that they like. This is what we mean by dukkha, dukkha nirodha. Well, if that's true, and we can actually learn to practice that, then the place to learn to practice that is in our own mind, moment by moment by moment. Every thought moment that comes up, am I giving myself a gift that I want, or am I giving myself a gift of job to do, work to do?
So, like on a practical level, say going back to the when we were talking about the fuel, say a negative thought arises. So according to you, what is the correct response? A negative thought arises, what is the correct response?
Well, this, without going into deep into the story itself, there was a point in time when the Buddha climbed out of the creek that he had fallen into when he was so weak, and recognized that all the stuff that he had been doing all of this time was not working, and he needs something new.
Mm-hmm.
That's when he came across the understanding that the first jhana is in fact the path. That's the right way to go, is first jhana. And so that's when he started to having more food. He became a little bit fat compared to the starving Buddha that he was, or the starving image that his friends had saw. So they abandoned him, and he stayed in that area of Bodh Gaya because it was kind of spooky. So that's basically just a tiny bit of the story. And there he's sitting, trying to figure out what's going on. And then there came a thought that I'm going to give you now that should become the basis and the foundation of all of your practice. And that is the Buddha, what he said was, aha, I see you, Mara. Aha, I see you, hindrance. Aha, I see you, negative thought.
Mm-hmm.
Aha, I see you. Now that aha, I see you is a completely different mentality than, oh no, there it goes again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? The aha, I see you is actually gladdening the mind. Aha, I see you. And now you've got a new mind moment. So here we are thinking about the argument we had with girlfriend. And now we wake up and we say, aha, I see that I'm wasting my time thinking about an argument with girlfriend. I see that crap.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's the wake up. If you can see it as that, the next thing that we do, in fact, you've already made the change. Aha, I see you, Myra, doesn't mean now we go back and return to that argument with the girlfriend, but we let it go. We throw it out. We put something else in the mind that's more wholesome, like taking a deep breath, acknowledging that, and say, I really do like her. There's no reason to argue. And so we change the content of the mind. This is the major change between the Mahasi method and the actual teachings of the Buddha, is that you have to change the content of the mind from the unwholesome into something wholesome.
Mm-hmm.
And that's easy to do because you go all the time changing the mind one time after another. The mind moment, I mean, there's like 10 a second or so.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them last a couple of seconds. But we would go, in fact, Freud even called it free association. We just move from one thing to the next and the next. They talk about it in Buddhist terms in the fact that the monkey mind is jumping from tree to tree to tree, jumping from thought to thought to thought, right? So when students say, well, how do I change my thought? Well, they're so temporary anyway. It's ridiculous to say, how do I change my thought? They're changing. You can't stop it.
Mm-hmm.
But you can change the direction that you're going in with them. You can think what you want to think when you think about thinking what you want to think. And when you don't think about thinking what you want to think, you're liable to think any old thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
So you're
so we
saying
learn to
is,
guard the mind and to make sure that the mind is thinking wholesome thoughts.
okay, so you're basically, to summarize so far, you're saying like the Mahasi method only has half the picture, right? It has the noticing, but it doesn't replace it with something
I wouldn't
wholesome.
give it even 50 points.
But doesn't it, isn't the noticing, isn't that aha? Isn't that just like, isn't it the same thing as the noting practice? Like, aha, I see, a thought, or, a negative thought or a negative feeling. Is that not the same thing as the aha?
I don't know of any Mahasi system where they say, "Aha, I see you."
Okay, so you mean like
They say,
saying that in your head?
I see it again, again, again. Okay, we're talking about an attitude change here. We're talking about gladdening the mind.
Hmm.
Talking about adding something new in there. To
Hmm.
remember to add something new. And this is what we call right effort.
Hmm.
Okay, that this is actually very much following the Eightfold Noble Path. That we start with right view in the sense that, yes, I can think wholesome thoughts. Then we have right sati, which means I have to remember to look at what I'm doing. And then we investigate. Is this thought wholesome or is it not wholesome? And that investigation takes a split second. It only anybody can do that. We can say because the criteria is easy. If I'm feeling good, then it's a wholesome thought. If I'm not feeling good, then it's not a wholesome thought. In fact, the whole idea of hindrances is that they're hindering me from feeling okay. And so when people say, "Oh, well, the Mahasi method means that we continue to have negative thoughts and we accept those negative thoughts," means that we're actually just practicing and accepting and continuing in a depressed state. And it's okay that I'm depressed. Let me get out a knife and I'll end it now. Okay? So that's not what the teaching of the Buddha is. The teaching of the Buddha is that um, acceptance has to do with friendship in the sense that you accept a friend. When the friend comes to the door and you see the friend, you open the door and accept him right away. If some stranger comes to the door, you don't want to open the door to him. You want to know who he is. If it's a cop or a bill collector, you don't want to open the door for sure.
Hmm.
Okay. So we need to start then guarding our door to allow only the friends in, to have friendly, wholesome thoughts, and to not allow the unwholesome thoughts. Because the unwholesome thoughts got into the mind in the first place because we accepted them. We accepted them. When Mama yelled at me and I accepted her yelling at me, that means it gives me permission to start yelling at her later when I'm older.
Hmm.
And so we need to be more discriminating and less accepting. And later, once we get excellent at accepting, then that means that we can let the world go, that we don't have to try to fix the world according to our own standards. So another way of looking at it is this whole idea of acceptance means that we have to look at the distinction between the inside and the outside. On the inside, if I accept all of the crap of the world, then I'm going to be full of crap. But if I can clean up on the inside and have only wholesome thoughts and a loving nature, then I actually can accept the outside world without letting it destroy me. I can just leave it alone.
Hmm.
It's not my business. It's not my problem. I accept that Donald Trump did whatever Donald Trump did, and it's not my worry, not my problem. But look how many people in the United States are really upset about Donald Trump.
Hmm.
Hmm. Why are they upset? Because they don't accept it. Some people, they don't accept what Donald Trump is against, and other people don't accept what all the people that Donald Trump, and so you've got all of this non-acceptance going on. But along with all of that non-acceptance is all of this acceptance. All of those followers of Donald Trump accept Donald Trump. They accept him. They bring him in. They say, yeah, this is right, and other things are wrong. So the question is, can you just leave things out there? That's the way of accepting it. It's just leaving it go. It's not my problem. Let me have my problem is to clean up on the inside. And here I'm not going to be so accepting. Here I'm going to be nurturing instead.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So
So.
acceptance has a problem to it. Let me give you this to kind of illustrate just a little bit. Though this is a bit advanced, I'll go ahead and do it with you.
Okay.
At the very bottom is hot war, arguments, fisticuffs. At nations, it's open warfare.
Mm-hmm.
Above that is Cold War, hostility, where people are not speaking to each other,
Mm-hmm.
etc., like that, avoidance.
Mm-hmm.
The next level above that is toleration. Toleration is still hot. I will still, for instance, the Christians will tolerate the Muslims. But as soon as a Muslim does something wrong, we're going to kill them all. But right now, we got to tolerate them.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The next level above that, then, is this level of acceptance to where I can, in fact, put up with stuff. I may not like it, but I can put up with it and I can accept it. That's the way that it is. I'll live with it. The next step above that is now beginning to get out of all of this ordinary life, including acceptance is just ordinary world, ordinary. The Pali word is putajana, ordinary people, ordinary society. Above that is the nobles. And the nobles have two levels. The first level for the noble is friendship. The Buddha said in one of the suttas, it's called the Half Sutta, by the way, where the Ananda comes and says, "Oh, Sariputta just told me that the teachings of the Buddha, the entire teachings, is half of it is all about friendship." And the Buddha correctly says, "No, all of the teachings are all about friendship.
I've heard that. Yeah. I've heard that.
To be friends with yourself, to
Uh-huh.
be friends with the world, not just to accept the world that it is, but be friendly with everybody that you meet." Now, there's two kinds of worlds out there in the sense of the world of information, the world of media, the world of what's happening far away from here. But the real world is the real world that does affect us, the immediate world, our environment, the town we live in, and only the things that we see. That's our world, and that's the world that we want to be friendly with so that we can be friendly with everyone that we talk to, everyone that we meet, and people that we don't know and don't meet and don't see are none of our business. Donald Trump is none of my business. I don't care what he does. He's not my problem. But look how many people say he is my problem from both sides.
Mm-hmm.
hmm So, when we recognize that things are not our problem, we can accept them. But in our locality, we're going to see things as friendly, complete friendship. But that takes a change in attitude on the inside because we normally have the attitude that we live in a dangerous world. We live in a dangerous environment. Oh, if I don't care about Trump, things will get really dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
That's the mentality. And so everybody becomes afraid.
The anxious mentality, right?
Right. But if you have a heart that is easygoing and not full of fear, then what happens on the outside world is not an issue, not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the place above that. The highest noble place is what is referred to in Latin as amor fati. Now, the word fate here is the word that we have for fate. And we're talking about fate in the sense of whatever happens.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Just your immediate future. What's happening, we can become in love with. We can fall in love with whatever it is that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And what we mean by in love with here is then that highest level of acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
So when your very best friend or someone that you're expecting comes to the door, it's not that you just allow them in like you would a friend. You usher them in. You
Mm-hmm.
bring them in with joy. Okay. This is the way that we want to start living our lives, as if everything is an absolute friend. best friend.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this way we can change. This is a new attitude. Now, that attitude is going to change because we're developing it as a skill. Going back now to the Eightfold Noble Path, we're talking about right view, right sati, or right remembering, to wake up. The next is the right investigation. You could call that investigation the same as the noting method, but then that investigation has to be followed by right effort. And that right effort then is, after we made the investigation, we have to do two things. One is to change the way that we're breathing by taking a long, deep in breath. And the other thing that we're changing is we're going to change the content of the mind. Aha, I see that hindrance, and out it goes. I'm not going to think about that argument. I'm not going to think about that email that has to write. I'm not going to think about having to go to work tomorrow or anything like that. Any thoughts that are not here and not now are hindrances, and out they go. And for this little while, I'm going to practice developing the skill of the right attitude. Now, everything in our culture, including being a baby when we're born, puts us in a victim's position. As an infant, we are a victim. We can't change our own diaper or feed ourselves or talk. And when we get a little bit older, still the furniture is for adults. The adults run us around. Whenever we go any place, we can't just go where we want to. We got to have mommy or daddy's hand to hold. We can't even walk very well. So we wind up being a victim, and we are an underdog under all of this authority. And because we start out as a victim, we maintain and remain in that victim's position more or less our whole lives, so that we become victims, and a victim needs a savior. A victim needs a mommy. A baby needs a diaper to be changed by his mommy. Okay? So this is the idea then of the way that people live their lives is, oh, I have a mess in my life. Let me find someone else to clean it up because I can't do it by myself. And that's the attitude that everyone brings to meditation. Therefore, they will say, and meditation will do something to me. Or the guru, if I listen to the guru, I can make a change. The guru will do it for me. Okay? Or the meditation is going to do it for me. And so there are those who have said, and I have put in 100,000 hours of meditation. Like that means something. Right? It's almost as like at 30,000 hours, the karma machine in the sky is recording all of this down. And when you get to 30,000 hours, he comes in with his Shakti pot, and he blesses you and whacks you and says some words, and now you feel good. Okay? That's the way that most people practice meditation, that it's the outside thing that's going to do it to them. Rather than saying, oh no, this is a skill that's got to be developed. This is a skill that has to be practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced, because we've got two strikes against us. We've got both our instincts and then all the cultural baggage that was built on those instincts that are keeping us down and keeping us suppressed and keeping us as victims. So we're going to have to make a major change here. And the major change is a change of attitude. What attitude do we have? The attitude of hindrances is the attitude of a victim. The attitude of work to do, the attitude of things that are broken that need to be fixed. The attitude basically of criticism. That in fact our culture puts great stock in critical thinking and in criticism. This is good, this is bad, this is better, this is an A+, this is an F. Right? Our whole society is built upon it. Yeah, a lean-to is okay, but a sala is better. But a house with walls is even better than that. Okay, and so you can see, and now a skyscraper with Trump Tower's name on it, that's even better.
It's never enough, basically.
Yeah, you see, nothing is ever better enough because we can always find something better. And this is the critical thinking. This is what's given us our technology and our civilization, and we don't enjoy it.
Mm.
Even though we have all the technology and all the safety now of technology in our civilization, we don't live like that. We still live like we were primitive. We still live like that everything is dangerous. And
Arguably, we're even more anxious because of like social media and whatnot.
exactly so.
Mm.
Exactly. So, even though we have been able to fix much of the outside world and make it habitable, we haven't fixed the inside world so that we can enjoy that new habitation. We have done it with the critical mind, but guess what? If we're critical on the outside, we're critical on the inside. In the sense of wanting things that we don't have, thinking that, oh, if I get that new thing from technology, then I will be better off. I'll be happy. I see that new car, I want that car. That means that without the car, I'm carless, and therefore I'm not up to scratch. But if I get the car, then I'll be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is one of the ways of critical thinking. And it gives greed and ill will. I like this, I want this is good. I don't like this, it's I got to get rid of it, and it's bad. This is all uh, kind of magical thinking. That just because I like something doesn't mean that I have to have it. But if I like something, still I want it. Why do I want it? Ignorance. And then I make the decision, oh, and it must be good because I want it. This is what gives rise to judgments. We're talking about the judgmental mind or the critical mind that's going around liking things and wanting it and not liking other things and wanting to get rid of it, thinking that this is good and this is bad. This is actually the story of Adam and Eve. What did Adam and Eve do? They ate of the fruit of knowledge of good and evil.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
Okay? They
Mm-hmm.
ate of the fruit of knowledge, which means they had to put up with their judgments.
Mm-hmm.
If they decide that this part of paradise is better than that part of paradise, then this part of paradise must be paradise, and that part over there must not be paradise. And if they do that with every piece of paradise they get, they'll wind up with very, very little paradise and a whole bunch of not paradise. So Adam and Eve threw themselves out of their own paradise by judgments. They were
Mm-hmm.
judgmental. Okay? How often do you throw yourself out of your own paradise?
Mm-hmm.
With your own judgments? About every minute. Maybe when I'm really bad shape, every 10 seconds.
Uh-huh. And you're saying, so the one way out, we need to develop essentially the skill of creating more wholesome thought and recognizing hindrances as they arise.
hmm And guarding the mind to keep the hindrances out.
Uh-huh. How do we
And
keep them
this
out though? If
by
there's
being on
no,
guard. So as soon as my thought about that email comes into mind, I'm going to say, I'm going to stay here now. Everything is okay.
what
All
if it
right.
rises again? What if it comes
Everything's
back?
okay again.
Okay.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Just because we were able to throw it out of the mind so easily doesn't mean it's never going to come back. No, it'll come back just as easily. Are you going to let it come back in? Or are
Uh-huh.
you going to throw it back out again?
Uh-huh. Okay.
This is why it's practice. We have to keep practicing throwing it out again, over and over and over again. And pretty soon we get more and more in the habit of having only wholesome thoughts.
So sort of like Aristotle, what Aristotle said, that excellence is not a state, it's a skill.
Yes,
Right.
this is a skill to be developed. In fact, there are four primary skills, and these would be the Eightfold Noble Path skills of right view, right sati, right effort, and right attitude. But there are some secondary skills. And the secondary skill, number one, would be investigating what the mind is. And so the skill of seeing dukkha. What is dukkha? What is not dukkha? If we recognize this as dukkha as a hindrance, then the skill of throwing it out and gladdening the mind. That's a secondary skill that needs to be developed, to gladden the mind, to brighten the mind, so that whenever we have a very quick thought of, um, let us say, a disaster is in process. A disaster, something like trying to sell a house that's in a foreign country, because that's actually something that's going on right now. And working with 2 or 3 lawyers and real estate agents and co-owners and haven't dealt with the sellers. But if I have a thought about that real estate transaction, I can say, I can't do anything about it right now. And not only that, but I'm okay right now. Everything is okay. I don't have to think about that house. Therefore, that house is off limits. I do not allow myself to think about that house. But that house is actually in the United States. Therefore, it's better for me to say, okay, the United States in general, off limits. Any thought that comes up about the United States is going to be out. And I throw that thought out. Okay. Um, when Danny from England was actually here in Thailand, I gave him the job that while he is in Thailand, to not allow yourself to have any thoughts about England, not about going home, not about the parents, not about girlfriends, not about job, nothing. Anything that happened in England, you can't think about it while you're in Thailand. And that really helped him clean up his mind, because most of his thoughts were about England. Because he was new in Thailand, there was not much to think about in Thailand. And so he could begin to concentrate on just his present moment. And so what I'm talking about now is the beginning to develop a don't-do list. You know about a to-do list? Okay. Well, we're going to have a don't-do list. Okay. And that you'll put some items on that list, and pretty soon you can cross things off that list because you don't do them anymore.
So by continually catching negative thoughts and replacing them, they stop becoming as frequent, is what you're saying.
That's exactly right. They rot away. By not having them so frequent, by not giving them the fuel, they will stop burning. And you're going to start giving a new fuel to a new fire and kindle that. And that kindling that we're doing here is the kindling of friendship and nurturing. And we're putting away the critical mind. So in a way, we can say, let's go back to the word acceptance for just a bit. When that baby is brand new born, the mother accepts that infant. In fact, that the acceptance, when the baby is born, moms generally, because of modern Western medicine, she's kind of out of it. They gave her a saddle block or some drugs or whatever like that, and then the nurse will take after the baby is born and go clean it up. So after the baby's cleaned up and the mom's got her brain back working again, they will bring the infant in, and that's the point of bonding. That's a very tender moment. A lot of people like to be there when a mom gets her brand new baby. Everybody tears up with joy. Okay, so she completely accepts that child. That's amore fati. That's I got it. Okay, that's what we mean now. But that acceptance of that child grows old. But in the beginning, mom nurtures that child. Anything that child does is marvelous. Even his first poopy after a couple of days. They even anticipate it. Some people even take photos of baby's first poopy, right? But 15 years later, that 16-year-old boy walks into the house and takes a dump on the floor in the kitchen. No, now the parents are going to be really critical. In the beginning, they were nurturing. Okay, so this idea of Western